Well, welcome everyone for I think it's our second or third one this year. But this one is definitely an important one because half of the year is over. So or actually Context just finished all the work on the Q2 numbers, so they're really fresh. So we'll share them with you in this call. Anthony will also give a forecast, which is very preliminary. The final forecast will be done somewhere in August. So also that is very fresh. So I think a lot of good information for you. Before we start, I want to hand over to Frank. He want to do a few words on the GTDC, the things we're doing, and then we'll take it away with Anthony.
Peter,
Frank.
thank you. And probably good afternoon to most people on the call. I'm sure there's a few that good morning, but happy to be here and looking forward to this second quarter overview. Before we turn it over to Anthony, a couple of quick things. I just wanted to let everybody know that we've continued with our GTDC summits. The first one coming up is in Singapore. So for those of you that might have interest or have teams in that part of the world, certainly come join us. And then I'm happy to announce that for 2026, we're coming back to Nordvik, and it'll be in the April timeframe, and we're looking forward to that. So stay tuned, look for the meeting notices and the hold your calendars, which will be coming out for both those events, and then eventually North America, which will be February of 2026. One of the things I want to remind everybody about is that we continue to provide and distribute a lot of really good content, research reports, webinars, videos, podcasts, etc. And you can access all of them on our Knowledge Hub. So feel free to go ahead and do that. Anthony, with that, I know you're anxious to show everybody your charts, so go ahead and do that. I'm actually looking forward to seeing them too. Over to you, Anthony.
No, sorry. I thought, great Q2 number, spoiling alert.
Yeah.
But yes, that's what, thank you, Frank, thank you, Peter. It's great to be back in front of all of you. And as it was mentioned already, Q2 number are already fresh out of our database, and we are ready to present that. So today, I'm going to start first with June data to see our June, the last month of the quarter, how did we finish? And then we look back at Q2 and overall H1. So already some fresh number for you. And then we look also at forecasts. So forecast, or last forecast that we presented and published was beginning of May. So now we're mid-July. So it's not so fresh anymore, but what I have for you, we are in the midst of working our forecasts on some key categories. So I'm going to put some number in front of you that could be of interest, especially like on the PC side. I know PC this year is the year of PC, isn't it? Let's see. Let's look at the number. I know I look at the number and I can tell you PC is doing well. But first, let's look at June. June finished a few weeks ago, and we were waiting for the last day to be the last day that was a Monday to be able to publish this data. So here we are. How did we finish June? After a great start of the quarter, you can see the number here in April, or the chart here in April and May. We finished at 2.3% growth. Very positive. It's been a few months of positive growth. This is adjusted, meaning like there is some days in Spain and UK that we work more this year compared to last year, so slightly adjusted. So if you look at your report, maybe you'll see something different. But still 2.3% growth, great result for June. But slightly I was a bit disappointed because the compare was quite easy. Last June was minus 2.4. So I was hoping to see a bit more momentum in June, but that did not happen. So we're going to explore that in terms of country, in terms of sector, but let's start with our volume and value split. In terms of value split, strong Q2 finish for our volume categories, plus 4% compared to last year. So great activity there, but the disappointment came from the value categories, -1. We cannot complain too much looking at the growth that we've seen at the beginning of the quarter in April and in May, double-digit growth for these 2 months, but June a bit disappointed at -1. So let's try to drill down a little bit more into the actual sector and categories to see what the data is telling us. In terms of value, so value was disappointing. We look at software and services, flat. We'll call it flat at -0.4%. Why was that? It's on the security software. Security software is the biggest software categories in our European distribution panel, representing around 20% of the software and services sector. And we saw a decline in June of -5%. So that's unfortunately couldn't be counterbalanced by the great performance that we've been seeing on virtualization or Office application. So that's why we've seen a negative or flat performance on the software and services. The other value sector is infrastructure, +4% in June. And this time, great performance. We've seen some huge deal on the component side, all the GPU and processor and RAM that go in a data center, as well as server, doing well in June, just +1%. But when you compare to last year, when last year it was already a +20%, so great performance on server. But what should draw your attention is the personal system in June. We're really seeing this acceleration of the Windows refresh, and in June, that was the case as well, plus almost 12% year over year. Notebook still the top category in our distribution panel, a 14% growth. But the surprise, and we're going to talk a bit more when we look at Q2 and then the forecast, was on the desktop side. Desktop continued to impress us, or I don't know. It's very incredible performance when we look at June, +30% almost year over year on desktop. Continue to surprise us month after month, quarter after quarter. So it's also going to be a challenge for us to forecast, but we go that in a minute as well. Peripheral, June was flat as well. We see terrible activities on the print sector. Luckily, accessories was able to balance this out. And telco, June, we see on the smartphone one, -6%, overall -7%. So June not finishing well. But last year, June, we've seen a lot of activities, so that was difficult. That was always a difficult compare, but still a slowdown activity in June on a smartphone. In terms of country, the country that keeps surprising us is the Nordics. Not even double digits, it's 21% growth compared to last June. Incredible performance on the infrastructure side, in the personal system side, in the software side, everywhere. It's positive in the Nordics. That's, great performance over there. What's also nice to see is Germany still posting another month of growth on the 2% growth. Similar category always. That's always the same category that we keep repeating, is always a personal system. But desktop, this time, desktop in June, +31% in Germany. Incredible performance there. And software virtualization in June in Germany, 135% growth. Tremendous performance. We'll see that when we look at vendor, how the vendor are doing, when we look at H1. And the only disappointment, or the main disappointment, was a country dear to me, France, where we see -8%. I'll go in more detail later on in France when we look at the overall Q2, but June was definitely even the worst performance of this quarter for France. You don't see any really great activities in June, maybe a bit on the PC side, but nothing like what we've seen in Germany, for example. UK also minus in June. That's disappointing, and we'll talk about more about this, because overall UK, I've seen some great deal in Q2 that was positive here in the UK channel. And Spain continuing on their incredible growth. But enough of June. Let's put that more in perspective and take a step back and try to look at overall Q2 and H1. So how did we finish Q2? Finish Q2 higher than Q1. Q1, if we remember, we finished at 4.8% and Q2 4.9%, almost 5% growth compared to last year. Tremendous performance of all of you on this call and on the distribution channel, being quite strong and resilient in this term of uncertainty. And clearly we're seeing here the strengths of distribution. So what does that mean for H1? Well, with 4.8 and 4.9, the math doesn't lie, it's 4.9, just below 4.9, but still, great start of the year. We forecasted a bit below that, but happy to be proven wrong at 4.9%. Great performance here in H1 and in Q2, despite what we just saw in June with the slower months of June. So let's go back and do similar exercise, looking at our volume. And considering we already saw the monthly data, looking at the quarterly data should surprise no one to see value being the main contributor. We remember the number that we saw in April, in May at double digits. So that's why we see in Q2 8% growth. And on the personal and the volume side, it's a bit lower, but still at 2% growth. And thanks for the PC to have brought this positively, because print have been doing very, very badly this quarter. Overall for H1, yes, 7.4 on the value, 2.2 on volume, a great, nice trajectory. Volume should accelerate a bit more in the upcoming quarter, but still very positive on both sides of the business. So let's dig into the top sector in more detail, where we can see, once again, software and services, another 10%, another double digit growth for this quarter, keeping it at 10%. This time, we know security was disappointing in June, but posted some tremendous result in previous months. So the security software finishing at 14% year over year. But now what we've been saying for the past few months and few quarters is virtualization software gaining share, like the very good, I think the VMware and Broadcom acquisition by the Broadcom acquisition of VMware. We've seen a lot of activities on this in the channel, some price structure putting in place, some new contract, etc. But still, H1 year on year for virtualization plus 73%. And now virtualization is actually the second biggest software sold via distribution. So great performance here for software in H1 at 10%. But what is interesting is what we've been waiting for is a refresh on the PC side, on the personal system side. And we see pickup of activity across country and finishing personal system at 8%. Of course, the notebook being the largest category around this type of growth as well. But as I mentioned, it's desktop that keeps surprising us. And on H1, we see a growth of 20%, even more than 20% on the desktop side across of European distribution panel. So incredible performance for desktop. We know we had some old machines that need to be replaced, and the Windows 11 upgrade is accelerating this process. But nonetheless, still great growth. I know the base is quite low compared to what we used to have pre-COVID years, but we see this with this refresh and accelerating in some countries as well. The third category here, infrastructure, up plus 7%. All these data center need all the components, and we see that with the new GPUs being shipped via distribution. We also saw GPUs, the new generation of GPUs, having great traction in the distribution channel as well as processor, as well as RAM in terms of component. Even on the internal SSD, internal HDD, we see some positive results. But overall, server driving this category in H1 at plus 8% for server in H1 compared to last year. So let's talk about the more disappointing sector. We have two on the peripheral side. Sprint basically on the peripheral side having terrible performance in Germany and in France. And when something goes wrong in Germany, usually it doesn't pan well for the rest of Europe. And we've seen this in the peripheral number. Or luckily for us, accessories have been doing quite well on the keyboard, on the mice, on your docking station. We see some good activity even on carrier case, a bit less, but keyboard doing quite well in this peripheral sector. Telco, as I mentioned, if we remember last year in H1, there was a lot of activity, lot of deal being done on all stock of Apple smartphones or those old device that really took the smartphone and telco to a new level. So that's why here we see a -4% year over year, because we didn't see this activity at all this first half of the year. But nonetheless, still overall 4.9% on the H1 on Q2. Great trajectory. That's quite positive. It's nice to present some quite good numbers. So let's now dig into more detail into our country view. In our country view, I will put like the 2 quarters, Q1 and Q2. And in blue, it will be the H1 number. So 2 stories here, or maybe more than 2 stories, but we can still double-digit growth in Spain, in the Nordics, and almost in Poland for H1. Spain, if we haven't talked about it so much today, it's but still leveraging the digital kit initiative that we've seen on the IT side, where the government help the purchase of IT devices. So that's why we see some great growth over there in Spain, but overall the economic climate in Spain is also quite favorable. So PC have been growing, even monitors have been growing. That's something we've seen in other countries, but positive results here in Spain. Telcos that we just talked about, actually Spain have been doing well. The key brand, the Apple, of course, and the Samsung, but also some big Motorola deal that we've seen happening in H1. That really propel Spain to plus 13% in H1. So tremendous results for Spain. And same for the Nordics. Nordics was more around infrastructure. Yeah, it's more what we mentioned in June. It's what's happening in Q2 overall, and in H1 overall. It's infrastructure, but also all software, all categories growing so well. The PC also doing well, but infrastructure and server, you have to pick one category. Server plus 24% year over year in the Nordics. Great performance of server, great performance of server to another country that almost reached double digit, Poland at 9% in H1. Server in H1 plus 31% in Poland. Some great activities that we're seeing in server categories. And as usual, the PC also that's been doing well. And in Poland, we expect even more growth on the PC side with a new education framework being put in place. So some great news here for Poland in the coming quarter as well. Looking at the biggest economy and the biggest country in our panel, Germany. Germany, so as I said, when something goes bad in Germany, usually goes bad in the rest of Europe. But if it goes well, it goes well for the rest of Europe. And we see Germany plus 4% in H1. And it's the same category. It's going to be your PC. It's going to be your server plus 43% in H1. It's going to be everything except peripheral, really. But so it's nice to see Germany after some difficult year, especially last year when we had a difficult H1. It's nice to see a turnaround in Germany to push and to be on the plus 4% in the first half of the year. In the UK, if we move to the next, to the second country here, we see plus 5% in Q2 after a disappointed -4. But behind this number, there is some very, very, very large deal that happened in UK that took them to this positive number. If we remove this, that would be more a flat performance for UK, but let's include this to give good news for everyone. But no, this huge deal that we see, especially on the server or more on the component side, really help the overall UK performance. But nonetheless, we see in UK acceleration on the PC, refresh plus 80% in Q2 of mobile on notebook, so great performance over there. But overall flat, and that's what we seen also in Italy. Italy in Q2 was quite a quiet month, as we can see by this number. In May, we were quite worried because the activity was down quite a lot. But luckily, the last week of June was there to save what could be saved. And we finished at -1%. And we finish overall H1 flat. But the story of the top 5 countries is a story in France. France posting -5 in Q2 after the -8 that we've seen in June. France is very gloomy. Like we struggle with a 2026 budget. So public sector is not doing well. So that impact our corporate resellers. So that impact also the overall channel, obviously. We've seen a lot of we're hearing a lot of story about reseller that losing the credit line, so making business even more difficult. As we see in France, actually, when we look overall at the environment in France, company bankruptcy at historical high in France. So the business sentiment, business confidence is going down. And that's reflecting the distribution performance here, -5% in Q2, -2% overall. And even on the PC side, you know, like we've seen in other countries, this the Windows 11 being a key driver. It's not something we've seen to such extent in France, even not that much. Hopefully that will come in the next few quarters. I know French people, we are maybe taking our time on these kind of things, but that's what's seen in our data, in our panel. Not very good performance overall in France. But the channel, +5%. Let's go back to the +5% in H1. That's what we need to remember, an upward trajectory. So now what I would like to do, something we did last time, is to look at more the vendor view. Okay, let's look at our top vendors in our panel, in our distribution panel across Europe. So looking in the bar representing like the volume, revenue, and the triangle, the year-on-year growth for H1. And here is no surprise to see the performance of VMware virtualization vendors with 80% growth. But actually, when we look at the other software vendors, such as, let's say, Fortinet or Checkpoint, on more on the security side this time, we're still posting almost 20% growth year over year. Citrix as well on the virtualization, positive growth. Microsoft, obviously, as well on the Office application space, growing well. In terms of hardware, there is 2 stories. There is a story of people more involved on the server side, such as HP, and all the components that are going into the server, doing quite well here in H1. Cisco, a bit more difficult on the networking side. But also we know that Cisco likes to also bypass distribution, so that may not be representative of the whole Cisco business. Here we're just looking at distribution data. Dell EMC, server doing well, and as I mentioned, similar story for Cisco, networking not so well. But overall, software vendor, server vendors doing well on our value categories. That shouldn't be a surprise with all we discussed previously. We can see also Lenovo and Veeam, etc. So great performance over there. If we now move to the volume vendors, so Apple still the #1 vendor in our distribution panel. It didn't decline, and of course that was linked with a big activities, the large activity we saw last year on the smartphone side. That didn't happen again this year. Although the notebook of Apple are still growing a little bit, but not to the level that we've seen on the Windows PCs. And that's why we see great performance on the Windows PC manufacturers such as HP, Lenovo, Dell, and Asus as well. Asus doing even better because Asus also selling graphic cards, and we have the refresh of the new graphic card that came up earlier this year. So that's why we can see Asus doing close to great performance, close to the 20% mark there. But HP, Lenovo as well on double-digit growth. Samsung, similar story to Apple really, is that the smartphone storage not doing well in this year. And looking at the print, so I touched on print earlier, print not doing great in H1, Q1 was okay, but Q2 was dreadful. So that's why things are quite balanced for the print vendor, the Canon, the Brother, and Epson. And if we have to highlight another one, yeah, Xiaomi doing like in the top 10 for H1 in terms of volume vendors. So they have the tablets that's been doing quite well, but it's mainly the smart home appliances using the distribution channel to reach our customer across Europe that are posting some incredible growth. So it's interesting to see different brand, different from the traditional vendors that we have here in the top 15. So that's tremendous performance on both volume vendors, especially the one involved on the PC side, values, that's all about software and infrastructure. So 5% in H1, 4.9. So what will the next quarter, the next 2 quarters, and how we're going to finish the year? So that's what we're going to move to our forecast data, preliminary data. But before we do that, just to keep us in check, let's look at what we forecast last quarter, to what really happened, what we discussed. And we can see overall we were under forecast by 1.8 percentage points. And that the infrastructure, the huge deal that we've seen in the UK, but also the Nordics. For infrastructure in Nordics, we thought like quite a healthy number at 16% growth, and they come out at 34 in infrastructure. So that's put us a bit behind on this space. The personal system acceleration of the upgrade earlier than anticipated. So, and more importantly, the performance of desktop. That's why we explained these 3% differences. Peripheral, we knew it would be bad, but we didn't expect it to be that bad, especially after okay Q1 performance. Software is always sometimes difficult to do the software well, but I think 3% is within our 2 scenario usually, so that's quite good. And as I mentioned, telco doing not so great, even worse than anticipated. So last time we did an exercise where I asked you to forecast PC, but in between it was too long ago, and because I'm working hard on upgrading our PC system, the table with your results is not there anymore, so I can't tell you how well or bad you did, but I'm sure you did all great. But what I wanted to do with you right now is go through the forecast. As I say, I could show you what we published back in May when we had published our forecast data. But right now, Q2 being finished, we're already in the exercise of revisiting our forecast for Q3, Q4, and next year. So I thought instead of showing you some old data, let's try to focus more on what's happening in the latest round of forecast that we are doing at the moment. So it's really preliminary data. It's really the first draft of our analyst. There is still a lot of discussion that's happening externally with some of you guys on this call, probably being in touch with our analyst that may vendor and distributor. We also organize some roundtable where we get a view of everyone. Then we also have some more internal round of of discussion where we bring us our analysts, our country managers that have can bring a more granular view. And all these results will be published on the 7th of August during a webinar that will be hosted 7th of August, 11 UK time. But I thought, okay, even if it's preliminary data, let's see how we can finish the year. So as I mentioned already, we've seen revenue growing up because we see more and more model at higher selling price. So that's why we see also this growth in revenue with a Windows 10 end of support happening in October. So we've seen that in the first 2 quarters, and we will continue to see a strong performance in Q3. I think Q3 we will come, I didn't have the breakdown here, but just for your info, I think we're planning a midpoint around 12% for Q3, a bit less for Q4. So that will be finishing the year at 8.5. For those who are not familiar with context forecast, we also try to give an optimistic scenario and a pessimistic scenario. The optimistic being 10.7 in green and pessimistic, the red one in 6.2. But still, Q3, not only the continuation of the refresh and the upgrade on Windows 11, as I mentioned earlier, I believe the education framework in Poland that will kick off. So that's great. Also, Italy, Italy has been not doing so well, especially on the PC side. But last year on the PC side, we had this huge educational deal that was happening in Italy, and this framework is now ended. So for the rest of H2, we will see an easier compare. So we expect a big Q3, 12%, 13%, even like optimistic. I think we are like 16% for Q3. For Q4, a bit down around the 10%, and for H1 next year, around 7%. But the number are being revisited at the moment, so that may change. So do join me on the 7th of August. Sorry, self-promotion. But we will see and continue what's happening. So that's on the mobile side. And if we look at desktop computing, this is this is incredible story. Like we finished 2024 plus 1% almost after years of decline, COVID, people switching to mobile, working from home, mobile computing growing so much. But in H1, I mentioned around like 20% growth or 25% growth in H1 in revenue. So that's something we will see continuing in Q3. Even maybe a bit more higher, maybe in Q3 at 24, 25% growth. And then we will see Q4 maybe to similar level, around 20%. And then the year-on-year compare is going to be very difficult. And we will see maybe a softer growth on this side and more on the single digit growth, or flat maybe in Q2 2026. That's going to be difficult to go above the 24% this year, but because we've been surprised so much, or 25% this year, we've been surprised so much. Let's see what our conversation with OEM, with distributor, with our reseller will come out with a number and fine tune H1 number. But for us, H1 like low single digit growth, but H2 2025 around 20-25% growth. So great for all of you looking after the PC brand or being a PC vendors. So strong result here in the PC. What do I have? I also have some print number. I think we still have time, so I can go through that a bit more. I told you that print was quite shocking result in Q2. In Q2, I think we finished something like, it was what? I try to remember, like -8%, something like that in revenue in Q2 when we are forecasting something higher. But it's very difficult for the print industry. It's very difficult because of budget being allocated to something else, to the PC refresh or to security We've seen a lot of attack in the recent months, in recent weeks. Security is taking a lot, cybersecurity, a lot of the budget or the investment of AI, and really the mindset on the print side that we keep hearing is we're going to use it till it breaks, and that's not good news for the print industry and the revenue here on the print forecast that we forecast quite -3%. Maybe on the unit side, it's going to be slightly better, but what we're seeing as well is a really price competition, price war between the manufacturer trying to be more aggressive, to really try to gain market share on the unit side. But that's going to be on the with his ASP going down, and that's for the hardware side, and similar story to what used to be key driver for the print vendors and for actually the distribution channel as well. On the print, on the consumable, a negative year after another negative year last year. Less printing. We'll see also the increase of ink bottles, or, you know, the refillables that taking share out of the normal ink cartridges. So not a great result here for the print industry and the print vendors, and we don't see that drastically changing for the rest of the year, as we can see in this number, -4.2 for consumable and -3 for hardware. Next year, that's going to be maybe closer to the flat line, to the 0 line. Maybe our Q2 optimistic scenario for hardware is just above 0% at 1% something. But that's the optimistic scenario. And pessimistic scenario will still be for H1 next year at -3, -4%. But as I said, let's see how we first finish this year, and Q3 will be slightly higher than what we see in Q2, and Q4 still -4%, so not great here. But we did have a good Q1 on print, so we can't, surprising few good quarters that we had in Q2, Q3 last year and Q4 this year. So let's continue that way. So what else I have for you? So the consumables that I mentioned, and maybe just to finish quickly, because that's peripheral, and I mentioned peripheral not doing well with the print. Let's look at accessories. Accessories have been doing better, especially on the keyboard side. We've seen some good growth on units and revenue. I think revenue will see like 4% growth in Q2, where mice in revenue was around 1%. But what that mean? We optimistic scenario is at 1%, as I think that's what the consensus was in our first conversation with people in the industries. That's going to be a flat year overall. People more focusing on keyboard, and also docking station. Docking station, I know is going down, but because with the new power demand of the new laptop, maybe we need to upgrade our docking station. But that's that will be a great flat performance for accessories. I should take the peripheral not so down because of what's happening in the print sectors. So that's the first few categories that I have for you today. So it's really fresh in the past few days with starting putting this number together. So really looking forward to publish this on the 7th of August. But nonetheless, great H1 overall. I know I finished bad with accessories in print, but remember that we've been doing so well in software, in the personal system, and infrastructure project picking up. So we should have a very good performance in the second part of the year. And let's hope for that, and looking forward to present when we will have a Q3 number, or maybe a bit earlier. Let's see when I will have the opportunity to speak to you all. Thank you very much. And let me know, actually, if you have any question, if you have any comments, feel free to let me know, or just reach out independently. Over to you, Peter.
Yeah, thank you for that, Anthony. Really, a lot of good information. Are there any questions or any comments you want to make?
Well, Anthony, Stefano speaking here. Just a quick question regarding the mix, because you are combining together software and services, which from my point of view makes not much sense.
Yes.
I would like to see, let's say, also a split between, right? Because from my point of view, from what we see, we have a double-digit growth on services overall, particularly when we talk about AI and professional services.
Very good point, Stefano. And that's something I'm planning to do in on the 7th of August, because that's something I think maybe we talked about before, but then something we need to improve. And that's what we're doing. That's what I'm trying to get from this kind of session with you guys, is to understand, okay, what you would like to see. And because I look after the whole forecast at context, so then we can have a team working and say, okay, how can we separate this and bring some good result on the services side and put some great data in front of you, but definitely something we will work towards, to include in this session, to include in the normal session. So yeah.
Yeah, and maybe a comment to everyone. If there are specific things or specific requests, please send them to us, because we can then look at it if we could do that next time, or accommodate it for the next time. I'd like to thank everyone for joining. The next call will probably be after the summer. Either we'll do one on the Q or on the full year forecast, or otherwise Q3. But you'll definitely hear from us after the summer. Well, thank you all, and hope to see you next time.